You're with the Hard Facts, viewers, from the CNN News 18 prime time studio along with Federal Bank. Viewers, I'm not one who's going to sit on the fence tonight. Backed by facts, I'm going to take a very clear stand. You're seeing those pictures where President Putin of Russia is conferring the highest order of the Saint Andrew the Apostle, an order created to recognize civilian and military merit upon Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's the highest order of chivalry that the Russians know and confer and award. Unfortunately, viewers, this bonhomie is being given short shrift by the Indian opposition. Russia is a very, very, very important ally for India, especially in the world of today, as riven it is with all sorts of multipolarities and other contradicting and contravening interests. Amidst all of this, viewers, this summit meet, which is taking place between the two leaders after a gap of 3 years, it is becoming clear that the opposition is prioritizing petty political score settling over the imperative of securing the national interest. If this wasn't the case, it would never have leapt to echo Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's withering attack on Prime Minister Modi for holding a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. First, let's acquaint ourselves with why Zelensky is having a meltdown over the summit. Let me quote what he had to say today, viewers. He came out and said that a Russian missile struck the largest children's hospital in Ukraine, targeting young cancer patients. Many were buried under the rubble. It is a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts to see the leader of the world's largest democracy hug the world's most bloody criminal in Moscow on such a day, unquote. These were Mr. Zelensky's words. Now, Zelensky is the leader of his country and is a sovereign in his own right. He therefore has every right to express criticism over the summit in a bid to pressure Modi to champion his nation, i.e. Ukraine's interest. Any viewers, any champion of their own domestic agenda would do so. In fact, Zelensky is so focused on championing his nation's cause that he is ready to sacrifice his nation's relationship with India. One wishes that all Indian leaders were this focused. Unfortunately, this isn't quite the case. Consider our friends in the Congress that are ready to put Ukraine's national interest above India's to take a few pot shots against Prime Minister Modi. Now, viewers, pay attention to what Jairam Ramesh in his wisdom says as he echoes Mr. Zelensky, who is not his Prime Minister or his President. He is the Prime Minister and President of Ukraine. Jairam Ramesh says, self-styled Vishwa Guru, who also gave himself the title of Vishwa Bandhu, is in Moscow the day a children's hospital in Ukraine is bombed. What happened to the Ukraine Mein War Rukwa Di boast? These are Congress party sentiments, viewers. The Congress support of Zelensky is an unforgivable error of judgment, at least in my opinion, viewers. You can take it or leave it. By turning against the nation's Prime Minister, who is only trying to secure the best deal for India from an indispensable oil and arms-rich ally, the Congress is sacrificing the national interest at the altar of expedient politics. Moreover, the Congress is hardly an exemplar of morality. When it was in power, it also understood the language of making some compromises at the altar of the national interest. Here's when the Congress Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, acted exactly as Prime Minister Modi is doing today, viewers. Let me take you back. The hard fact number one. Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's bromance with US President George W. Bush peaked in 2009 when he called the latter a great friend of India. Why did Manmohan Singh do this? Because Bush championed the nuclear deal, which was in India's national interest. In fact, it rehabilitated India in the committee of nations possessing nuclear weapons and normalized, viewers, our own stance. It was a great breakthrough movement. But what does Congress forget? That at that time, the International Commission of Jurists in Geneva had ruled the US invasion of Iraq was neither in self-defense against armed attack nor sanctioned by a UN security resolution authorizing the use of force, and thus constituted the crime of war of aggression. Viewers, any therefore casualty in that so-called war of aggression would have translated into a war crime. That's precisely what George W. Bush was in fact accused of, and even cases were filed against him on that fact. Did the BJP at that point say, why are you shaking hands with George W. Bush? In fact, viewers, it was the left, at that time the Congress ally, that had a problem. And Dr. Manmohan Singh was willing to resign over the nuclear deal. I'm taking you back to 2009, viewers. Dr. Manmohan Singh was doing exactly what Modi is doing today, putting the national interest first. At that time, neither the Congress, neither did the opposition, which was the NDA, have a problem. Today, viewers, it has a problem. Hence, I said that the opposition is therefore prioritizing petty political scores settling over the imperative of securing the national interest. Here's another fact, viewers. That same year in 2009, Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh meets Pakistan Prime Minister Yusuf Gilani within 8 months of the dastardly 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Why? Because the meeting was ostensibly called to submit actionable dossier on the role of Pak-based terrorists in the 26/11 attack, which was again, according to the Congress, a move necessary in the national interest. What do you think Modi is doing today, viewers, in Moscow? He's promoting his own self-interest. No, viewers, he's promoting India's national interest so that we can continue to get cheap oil and other benefits which some of our other friends have a problem with. What Congress forgets, viewers, in that 2009 second instance that I am bringing to you, is that Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh reversed the stand that he himself took on dialogue with Pakistan by delinking terror from talks to meet Pakistan Prime Minister Gilani in Egypt. It's a different matter that this meeting additionally ended up equating India and Pakistan as victims of terror. But the fact is, viewers, the fact is that meeting was necessary, and therefore the U-turn. Now let me remind the Congress of another hard fact. 3 years later in 2012, Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh met Iranian President Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Why? The meeting was called by New Delhi, not by Tehran, on the sidelines of a NAM summit to safeguard the security of India's economic interests, closely linked to oil imports from Iran. At that time, we were importing a lot of oil from Iran, viewers, which kept our economy afloat. What the Congress forgets is that the meeting was held despite US sanctions and UN nuclear watchdogs reservations over Iran pursuing clandestine nuclear weapons program aimed at, quote, undermining the regional peace, unquote, viewers. So why today is the Congress party behaving as if it has never done what Prime Minister Modi is doing in the national interest, viewers? Let's open this up. Let's ask some fundamental questions. I want to first begin from an informed point of view with Professor Brahma Chileni, who joins us. He's a professor of strategic studies, CPR. Mr. Chileni, I can understand Zelensky having a problem with the Prime Minister meeting President Putin. As I have explained, It's in his national interest to make a big song and dance about anyone meeting Putin. But what is the Congress party's problem? I can't understand. The Prime Minister is not going there because he loved that medal that has been given to him. He's going there in the hope that he can secure something for our country, just like the Congress presidents, Prime Ministers have done in the past, overlooking a large number of prickly issues. Why do you think this is happening, and why do you, and please situate, contextualize why Russia is so important, that we have to take all these sort of slightly morally, how should one say it, loose positions?
Well, first, there should be no place for petty domestic politics in foreign policy. There is a political consensus in India, sustained under successive governments, including Congress-led governments, that close ties with Moscow are vital to Indian interests. All governments have pursued the same policy toward Russia that the current government is pursuing. There has been no change in India's policy toward Moscow since the 1970s. So we're talking about more than 50 years of consistent Indian policy toward Russia, toward Moscow, under successive governments from Indira Gandhi to Narendra Modi. India needs both the United States and Russia to counter China. And the constant challenge for New Delhi is to carefully balance its foreign policy between Moscow and Washington so as to underpin India's independent approach to international affairs. If India's ties with Russia worsen, how can India pursue independent approach to international affairs? Today, the West is driving Russia's growing closeness with China, making it even more important for India to reinforce its relations with Moscow. A key motivation behind India's efforts to strengthen its relationship with Moscow is that India believes Russia can counterbalance China. After all, Russia is the world's largest country in area. It extends across 11 time zones. Russia possesses unmatched reserves of natural resources, the world's richest country in natural resources. It has an enormous nuclear arsenal, and it has veto power at the UN Security Council. In the past, Moscow has bailed out India. This is one country, as Mr. Modi said in Moscow today, is a trusted friend of India. Trusted. That's the word Manmohan Singh used as Prime Minister. That's the word even the earlier Prime Ministers used while referring to Russia. So it's important for India to ensure that Russia is not pushed to align itself with China. Building closer cooperation with Moscow is vital for geostrategy. It's vital for balance of power in Eurasia, for balance of power even in the wider Indo-Pacific region. It's vital for India's security. After all, with that friendship treaty between India and the Soviet Union of 1971, had that friendship treaty not been signed, the consequences for India would have been very serious, because that friendship treaty that Indira Gandhi signed with Russia, with Soviet Union, bailed out India at a time when Nixon was prodding China to open a military front against India during the Bangladesh crisis. Kissinger was calling Chinese leaders and urging them to move troops towards the India border.
Yes.
What saved India was that friendship treaty with the Soviet Union. So for more than half a century, successive governments in India have followed the same approach toward Moscow, believing that a closer partnership with Moscow will enhance India's security.
Well, it's also not as if, viewers, the Indian Prime Minister didn't raise the issue of Ukraine and the imperative to go for dialogue there. Please listen in, viewers, and I'm also going to put out the quote for you so you can understand exactly the words of the Prime Minister.
यूक्रेन के विषय में हम दोनों अपने अपने विचार खुले मन से विस्तार से हम उसकी चर्चा कर पाए। युद्ध हो, संघर्ष हो, आतंकवादी हमले हो, मानवता में विश्वास करने वाला हर व्यक्ति जब जानहानि होती है तब बहुत पीड़ित होता है, लेकिन उसमें भी जब मासूम बच्चों की कत्ल होती है, मासूम बच्चों को मरते हुए देखते हैं, तब हृदय छलनी हो जाता है। एक मित्र के नाते मैंने हमेशा कहा है कि हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए शांति सर्वाधिक आवश्यक है, लेकिन मैं ये भी जानता हूं कि युद्ध के मैदान में समाधान संभव नहीं होते। बम, बंदूक और गोलियों के बीच समाधान और शांति वार्ताएं सफल नहीं होती हैं, और हमने वार्ता के माध्यम से ही शांति के रास्ते अपनाने होंगे।
It's as direct as it gets, viewers. There's no ambiguity. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi standing up for humanity, saying that, look, you cannot have war where children are being killed in today's day and age. President Putin is sitting right in front of him. So, Mr. Kamru Chaudhary, what is your problem? What has gone wrong with the Congress party? Are you so today committed to this petty score settling that you will cross all Lakshman Rekhas, including the ones that, Brahma Chileni has sort of annotated, which is a 50-year-old one when it comes to Russia? Come on.
Yeah, Rahul,
You champion Soros, then you are championing this Zelensky, then you champion an N number of other warped newspaper editors and columnists and God alone knows what who have a problem with this country's rise. What is going on? Explain to our viewers, sir.
Rahul, first and foremost, as an Indian, I feel proud that my Prime Minister is visiting Russia and taking India's interest to the global world order. And that's how it should have been. Even when Indira Gandhi ruled, or Manmohan Singh ji ruled, or Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji ruled, India entered into a very strategic, declaration of the India Strategic Partnership in 2000, under which there is supposed to be an annual summit between the heads of the two countries every year. Since 2020, this was not there. We all know, as an opposition party, we all know that how Narendra Modi's government has rather botched up our external affairs or foreign policy
Kamru
in this
Chaudhary,
country.
don't give me this lecture. Answer the question. Look, the President Putin himself last year in December, and I read out that statement yesterday, came out and actually said that the ties between the two countries are progressing to a higher point.
Rahul,
He wouldn't be
the
saying
biggest-
that if he had a problem with Modi or he thought that Modi had given him the short shrift or the cold shoulder or what have you. So let's address this issue. What is your problem?
Rahul-
Why do you believe? Hang on, let me ask you. Do you believe that this statement by Jairam Ramesh is in good taste or poor taste? He says self-styled Vishwaguru. Self-styled Vishwaguru, who also gave himself the title of Vishwabandhu, is in Moscow the day a children's hospital in Ukraine is bombed. What happened to the Ukraine men may war Rukwadi boast? Our friend Dr. Manmohan Singh was holding talks within months of Pakistan-sponsored Mumbai terror attacks. He was
Rahul, do
having
you want
talks
this-
with an individual
Rahul-
who is cooking up a nuclear arsenal.
Rahul, do you
I
want this
brought.
to be
He
a-
was holding. He was calling the greatest friend of India, Mr. Bush, when he was accused of war crimes.
Rahul,
are you
do
doing?
you want this to be a monologue or
No,
a
I'm asking you a
informed
question.
debate? No, you are not asking a question.
sir,
You are
now
behaving
you will
as an
start
ostrich with
dilating
your head
the
buried
issue.
in the
You will
sand.
now get after
you
me.
You do not want to see the mirror. You just want to utilize your own Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You don't want to hear criticism of him. Why? I asked you one small pertinent question. Since 2000, after the strategic agreement in 2000 signed by Vajpayee and President Putin, why did the last 3 years didn't have
Okay.
any summit
You
meeting
want an answer?
between the two?
You
No,
want an
first
answer?
question. Second question.
Second question.
Second question.
Okay.
India and Russia has got a trade imbalance of around $40 billion, skewed in favor of Russia. We are importing oil from Russia. At what cost? Are we paying them in dollars or are we paying them in Chinese currency, which the Russia is using to purchase goods from China instead of from India? India is in a trap set by the world order, and Narendra Modi is playing into the hands of this world order.
So what is your question?
When you entered into the
What is your question?
security dialogue.
What is your second question?
I tell you, you are eulogizing the relationship between India
your
and
first
Russia
question
now.
is, why did the meetings not take place for 3 years? What is your second
That's-
question? Let me bring in Sanju Verma. She'll respond to you.
Why? How do we expect to breach the gap in the trade imbalance?
Okay. Second is
apart
trade
from-
imbalance gap. Okay. Sanju Verma,
And
go
third
ahead.
important
First
point,
of all, I get
you
this
raised-
feeling that the
no,
Congress doesn't
one
want us to
last
buy
question.
oil from
One last question.
oil from Russia.
One last question regarding the Indian nationals in Russian army. Let me just bring it to your notice.
Yes.
In February 2024, the Ministry of External Affairs in their website, which is still there, said the media reports about Indian nationals stuck up in the Russian army are inaccurate. And today we have got the Prime Minister trying to secure the release of
Not
these
trying
50
to, we have
people.
secured. Please, we
No,
have secured.
no,
That's the
you have
breaking news
secured.
that have come in.
Now,
No, one
why
second.
this-
Let me
why-
bring in
why
Sanju
are you
Verma.
telling
Sanju Verma,
lies
3
in the eyes of
questions.
the nation?
No lies were told, sir. If you read, the
Why-
MEA released a statement, and 5 days ago, Dr. Jaishankar,
I am talking about the
Dr.
February
Jaishankar talked about,
2024
one second,
statement,
Dr. Jaishankar talked about getting all the prisoners back. Otherwise, the relationship would not be founded on shared values. It was a very strong statement. 5 days later today, we've got the news that this is going to happen. And those are the hard facts, sir. On the question of also your business of buying oil, etc., there are more hard facts put out there. But nonetheless, let Sanju Verma respond to you and Dr. Ranganathan right after. Yes, Sanju Verma.
You know, Rahul, especially on your show, I always say Congress Darbaris need to do their homework and come, because the hard facts mean that they are not going to be allowed to shoot and scoot, which is what the Congress is prone to doing on just about every platform, from Jairam Ramesh to Rahul Gandhi to his acolytes. Make reckless allegations and then allow the other side to tie itself up in knots and prove every damn allegation. But today I will not allow your platform to be hijacked by reckless allegations of a very irresponsible party. And I will make some hard points on your show, the hard facts. First and foremost, let's get this very clear. Why was the 22nd annual India-Russia meet not held 2 years back, not in 2022, not in 2023? So let me just remind the Congress one thing. In 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the first Prime Minister to visit Nepal. The last time somebody did so was I.K. Gujral when he was the Prime Minister in 1997. The first time a Prime Minister visited Australia in 2014 was Narendra Modi. The last time somebody did that was almost 2 decades back when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. The first time a leader from India visited Israel was in 2017. It was our head of state, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, for the first time in 70 years, followed by a visit in 2018 to Ramallah. And I think to Narendra Modi goes the credit of completely dehyphenating the Israel and Palestinian policy, the Israel policy with respect to rest of the Arab world. And this is the same Prime Minister Narendra Modi who became the first Prime Minister in 30 years after Vajpayee to visit the Vatican and the Pope in October 2021. And this is the same Prime Minister Narendra Modi who became the first Prime Minister. Can I please finish?
Let her finish. She's coming to the point, she says. Yes.
I did not heckle him even once. I don't know why he's so impatient all the time. This is the same Prime Minister Narendra Modi who visited Papua New Guinea for the first time in over 75 years.
Right.
Reinforcing India's commitment to the global south, which includes Africa, Asia, Caribbeans, and what have you. What I'm trying to say is that our foreign policy has become more holistic, more inclusive under the aegis of Narendra Modi in the last 10 years. We are not like Manmohan Singh, who had that Sharm el-Sheikh disaster. We are not like Indira Gandhi today, who signed a lopsided Shimla agreement in 1972 with, her counterpart, and could not secure the release of even 54 Indian prisoners of war while handing over on a golden platter 93,000 prisoners of war belonging to Pakistan. This is the same Narendra Modi who is muscular and yet adopts a soft foreign policy approach when needed, and is not like Rajiv Gandhi, who signed that infamous India-Sri Lanka accord with his counterpart Jayawardene, leading to more than 3,000 soldiers being killed in Sri Lankan soil.
He
My
asked
limited
you.
point with respect to Russia is this.
Yeah.
I will just say one thing to Jairam Ramesh. Rahul, what happens is each time Narendra Modi visits Australia or Russia or the United States, everybody and everybody's uncle becomes a foreign policy expert.
Okay.
Each time international crude prices go up or down, everybody becomes an oil and gas expert. Jairam Ramesh, my limited argument to you is this. Yes, we import close to $47 billion worth of oil and petroleum related products from Russia. But Jairam Ramesh has forgotten one very important thing. India annually imports roughly 235 million barrels of crude, and every $10 fall in the price of crude leads to a saving of 0.6% on our current account deficit, reduces inflation by 0.8%, and our overall trade deficit by 1.2%, and our oil import bill by 2.3%. So for all those naysayers who say, by securing lower crude prices from Russia, what exactly have we achieved? We have achieved this. That is the reason that you see today, fuel inflation for the last 6 months is a negative 4% on an average. And last point is this, I will end with that. You want to know what we are achieving via our relationship with Russia? Forget about the rhetoric. Forget about the fact that Russia is supporting us in our bid for a permanent membership at the UNSC. Forget about the fact that Russia is supporting us when we talk about reforms within the United Nations, because reforms have not been carried out for 3 to 4 decades. But bilateral projects, 10 seconds more, bilateral projects with Russia include, very carefully Rahul, hear this, the supply of or licensed production of S-400, T-90 tanks, Su-30 NKI, supply of MiG-29 and Kamov helicopters, INS Vikramaditya, formerly known as Admiral Gorshkov, production of AK-203 rifles in India, and the BrahMos missiles. This is what we've achieved with Russia. So don't give bhashan to Narendra Modi.
Okay, very quickly. Dr. Ranganathan, is it fair to accuse today the Congress of score settling?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Look, the hypocrisy on display is just astonishing, astounding. Has the West or Ukraine or any of the 50-odd Islamic nations put sanctions on China for interning 1.5 million Muslims in concentration camps and forcibly sterilizing them and feeding them pork? Have any activists asked for China to be blacklisted because it never apologized for the Tiananmen Square massacre that murdered 10,054 innocents? Manmohan Singh called India George Bush's greatest friend, even as he was bombing and killing Muslims in the Middle East, because we wanted the nuclear deal. Looking forward to Europe, to be honest, that 2 years ago into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, continues to buy 13 million metric tons of coal, 43 billion cubic meters of gas, and 17.5 million metric tons of oil from Russia, lecturing India on morality and ethics. Germany is buying Russian fuel from Belgium and Holland. Europe is buying refined Russian fuel from Jamnagar, India. And what to say about the Americans? You are importing 9% of your crude from Russia, well beyond the Ukraine invasion. You sat on your bum when China violated the LAC in 2020. It was Russia, Soviet Union, that helped us in 1971 when you sided with Pakistan. And of the so-called armchair, holier-than-thou activists, both in the West and out here, when Russia attacks Ukraine, ban ordinary Russians from football tournaments and single contests. But when Pakistan attacks India, kills our jawans, launches terror attacks on our parliament, hey, come on, be sensible. Allow ordinary Pakistanis to play cricket and act and sing in Indian films. So these turnips can stuff their hypocrisy in their hookah and smoke it. Look, the Ukraine war apart, for which I condemn Russia, why should India be singled out for looking after its interests? Cheap oil and gas from Russia has allowed us to keep our inflation in check. The same inflation that, had it gone up, the opposition would have cried out for keeping it in check by buying cheap Russian oil and gas. There are many experts, obviously, who would elaborate in detail about the various domains in which we enjoy excellent relations with Russia, with our bilateral trade now more than $70 billion. There's oil and gas, there's economic partnership, and there's excellent defense partnership, S-400, AK-203, BrahMos, etc. But let me very briefly, just a minute, concentrate on one aspect that I can elaborate myself to some extent: science and technology. Rahul, this year marks the 53rd year of India Science Russia Technology Cooperation, the ILTP. 8 advanced centers have been set up that include Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgy and New Materials, Polio and other vaccine manufacturing, Bulandshahr facility, Indo-Russian Center for Biotechnology, Allahabad. Then there is one earthquake research facility. Several new initiatives have recently been launched to deepen sector-specific cooperation, primary among them being fly ash utilization. Coming to space science, there's excellent cooperation. We have a bilateral agreement under which Russia will train Indian cosmonauts for the human space mission Gaganyaan. Then there's setting up of navigation satellite systems, Indian Naval Sea and Russian Glosnas. Bottom line is, Russia is a trusted friend. And talking of friends, what is it that old rogue Kissinger said? To have America as an enemy is dangerous, but to have America as a friend is fatal.
Well, viewers, look, at the end of the day, India has to do what is in its own interest. This is not our war that is being fought in Ukraine. I just hope the opposition stops aligning with individuals or with people who have their own enlightened self-interest, which may not be in any way, viewers, aligned with India's interest. Otherwise, viewers, the Congress is dangerously misreading the mandate that was spelled out, viewers, by all of us just a few weeks ago. I leave it at this, take a short break. When we come back, viewers, a big question. Should seditionists be sitting in our parliament? And who's allowing it? We're coming right back.